is my third time attempting this challenge, and the third time attempting a script for it. Things went really wrong behind the scenes, but I'm here now, so it doesn't matter. Kind of. Anyway, if you followed my channel the past month, you know that I have played both Man of Medan and A Little Hope without making any choices. And for the sake of fun, and as stated before, shits and giggles, I want to continue that streak with House of Ashes. So, like I said, I've done this playthrough about 3 times now. A lot of stuff happened, but you'll just have to trust me when I say that shit went wrong, and it was necessary. But, looking back, I'm happy I redid it twice. I think the story this playthrough tells is the best of the 3, so it all works out. So, with that out of the way, let's enter the question: can you beat House of Ashes without making any decisions? The game starts with some light ritualistic murder in Akkad hundreds of years ago. We play as Kuram, a Gutian warrior captured by Balathu, who is about to kill us. But, luckily, before he can finish the job, a guard comes to drag us away to his cell instead. After the guard spouts xenophobic nonsense, we are luckily able to do to him what should be done to all bigots. With that scum out of the way, we're able to free ourselves from imprisonment and arm ourselves before marching to the throne room. Upon entering, we find that everyone inside is dead, and that Balathu is being chased by some kind of monster, and an uneasy alliance forms as they both plan to live, running down to the catacombs. After hiding from a rat and staying completely silent, we are cornered by the same monsters from before. We retreat and have a decision to either betray Balathu or to work together. By doing nothing, the game defaults us to working with him. Working with him doesn't end very well. In fact, it goes so poorly, it ends in both of our deaths. With 2 casualties on the board, we finish the prologue and move on to Act 1. We start off Act 1 in Iraq 2003, just after the war is over. I say that with quotation marks. And we see a boss/subordinate relationship that definitely isn't weird when you think about it, with Rachel and Nick, 2 of our main characters. Unfortunately, their KISSING time is interrupted when Rachel gets a call informing her that Eric is on site. Which is a little awkward, as Eric is her husband. Like, currently. He's currently her husband. Well, he's currently in the cuck chair, but, yeah. Anyway, Nick asks if Rachel is going to come clean to him, like a mature adult, but of course, she stays silent, and Nick takes it personally, storming away. With that out of the way, we move to the briefing room where we meet the big man himself, Eric, as well as Lieutenant Jason Kolchak and Dr. Clarice Stokes, my beloved. The US government brought all their favorite Boy Scouts together for the mission of a lifetime. Eric believes he has pinpointed the location of Saddam Hussein's chemical weapons at a ranch in the Zagros Mountains. They all prepare their gear to move out, but before they leave, Eric and Rachel talk a bit about their relationship, a rare moment of honesty between the two. Of course, that honesty is cut short, with Rachel remaining completely silent. Corporal Merwin interrupts the moment by slamming down a case of the UV wand inside, a surprise tool that'll help us later. Also, I love this moment between Eric and Merwin. The line delivery here is really funny.
For explosives.
Let me have a go.
No.
After making sure to talk to almost no one, because I want to get this over with, the Americans move out as we transition to Salim Othman, a lieutenant of the Iraqi army. He makes his way home for the first time since fighting in the war, just in time for his son's birthday. Present in hand, Salim goes home to find it empty. Well, once you count stolen watches, courtesy of our baby boy. Before we can go find our son and reprimand him through good old-fashioned cyclical abuse, our Captain Dar picks us up and forces us to fight the Americans as they make their move on their mission. Despite Salim's initial reluctance, he is forced to go with them as the Iraqi soldiers make it to the mountains a little bit after the Americans. The Iraqi soldiers stay on a ridge and Salim scopes out the field. He notices something that just shocks him to his core. A woman in the military. I know. The real horror all along was gender equality, really, if you think about it. Anyway, with Salim's fear of women out of the way, a helicopter approaches, circling the area. Dar recognizes this is the perfect moment to strike and utilizes the element of surprise, with an RPG that he forces Salim to use. With the helicopter down for the count, the soldiers fire off onto the Americans. First, Joey is shot in the leg and abdomen. Then, Merwin leaves a hostage to die, as do Eric and the other soldiers as they try to fight back. Clarice hunkers down, spouting words of courage. A helicopter strafes the Iraqi squad, but luckily, Salim is able to save one of his fellow soldiers before they advance forward into the field. Salim and the others march forward, but are clearly losing the fight as their numbers slowly dwindle. Salim wants to retreat, to live to fight another day, but Dar fights him. deciding his ego was more important than his cause. The fight is cut short when Salim ends up on top of Dar, but before our Yowie can develop any further, a grenade is lobbed next to us. The grenade explodes and knocks us off of Dar, but we get up to warn our brothers to get back. But it doesn't work, as 3 of them are shot down. Salim is obviously stunned and traumatized, but moves on nonetheless to see a shepherd being held at gunpoint by Jason. The shepherd runs away out of fear, and we have the drop on Jason. We get an aiming QTE, allowing us to shoot him, or not. But Salim doesn't want any more violence. No more killing. Little does he know, the killing has just begun. The ground shakes and splits open before they all fall in. Everyone is swallowed whole by the earth below, falling into the House of Ashes. Jason falls 52 feet into the sand caverns and regroups with Nick. Nick warns him that he saw something in the tunnels, something that wasn't human. But let's be honest, Jason doesn't believe him in the slightest. They move forward and hear Merwin's cries of pain as you see him suspended by barbed wire. Clarice tries to help him but has no luck. Jason cuts the wires and looks for morphine in Nick's pack while Clarice keeps watch. Clarice sucks at keeping watch. They drag Merwin through the tunnels, but his screams and cries draw the creatures that took Clarice closer. They try to subdue him and get morphine into his system, but it all goes wrong, and Nick accidentally chokes him out, killing his friend. We then follow Salim once again as he falls 55 feet into separate sand caverns and radios out for Dar. Unfortunately, something is blocking the signal. Salim moves deeper into the caverns to stumble across what looks like part of a temple. Salim enters a dark hallway and finds a door. He fails to push it open, so like me with my phone, he charges and makes it through. Unfortunately, waiting on the other side is a monster. Salim is then chased and runs out of the hallway, bordered by sunlight. The Edward Cullen wannabe creeps forward, but is stopped when a truck falls on top of it. Salim then makes the same noise I did when I found out Directive 8020 was going to be delayed. We then transition to Eric and Rachel in more separate sand caverns 62 feet below the surface. They recuperate and move deeper into the tunnels, Rachel using a lighter to find an airflow. A small detail Eric picks up on. They rappel down a hole in the ground to make it to the main throne room of the temple. They look around and spy with their little eyes some archaeological equipment from half a century ago, including a generator they work on fixing together. There's clearly meant to be a conversation between the estranged husband and wife, but as per the rules and his social anxiety, Eric stays completely silent as they fix the generator, bringing light and power back to the temple. They investigate a tape recorder in the corner and have another chance to rekindle their love, or to at least talk to one another like adults, but Eric remains silent as Rachel breaks the news to him. She is seeing someone else. The tape recorder fires off, interrupting them with the message of an ancient horror lying under humanity's feet. And for the sake of mankind, it must be buried. Before they can discuss whatever the fuck that means, Dar rappels down, firing at them, forcing them to retreat outside of the temple. Making it outside, they find a half-century-old rope that Eric ties to himself just in case. Dar rounds the corner, and Rachel is given the choice to either distract him or to hide. And of course, we do nothing as Dar spots them. Eric pulls Rachel away as they begin running. They make it to a cliff, but the aftershock sends Rachel down the slope. Eric is able to pass the rope, and Rachel connects it in time before dangling off the edge. The momentum carries Eric down the ridge as he's barely able to hold on to Rachel. He thinks about cutting the rope, but can't bring himself to do it. Thankfully, Jason and Nick close in on them, and will be able to help if they can hold on long enough. Dar shoots at them, but Eric is able to avoid the gunfire for long enough. Long enough for Rachel to make a choice of her own. She cuts the rope. Rachel has finally decided to let go of Eric. Act 2 begins with Eric crying over the supposed loss of his supposed wife.
Rachel!
Nick and Jason meet up with him and fall back to the temple. They explore deeper and think that they hear Joey deeper into the caverns. All 3 of them go to investigate. We cut back to Salim as he just can't help himself and just has to uncover the debris that crashed on top of the creature. Of course, the monster then wakes up, and he's then chased for a while. But he's able to learn of the creature's vulnerability to sunlight, so that's good. He escapes down to find his iconic weapon, but is tackled by the creature, and in a scene I've actually never seen before, he is saved by some American soldiers. They fire on the creature, stunning him long enough for Salim to slip into the darkness as the 3 Americans are then killed. Nick, Jason, and Eric go to find Joey, but instead find three things: a first aid kit, Dar, and a grenade. Nick is separated from Eric and Jason and finds himself caught between a rock and a hard place with Salim on one side and a monster on the other. The two of them agree to work together to take it out, but due to me fumbling the QTE and not being allowed to make a choice, the monster gets away as Nick and Salim properly introduce themselves. Nick and Salim seem to be cooperative with one another, and at least aren't immediately hostile. The same cannot be said for Jason and Eric, who both point their guns at Salim, causing him to surrender. Eric investigates the photos from Kalis with Salim as his prisoner as Jason and Nick explore more of the temple, eventually ending up in the catacombs. They find a good spot to place a trap, and while mining the walls, Nick feels remorse. I wanted to put a joke in this part of the script, but I won't. Because of Jason and Nick, an innocent woman was killed, and it's just a game, obviously, but it's a very real thing that has happened. Not with Jason and Nick, but just in general, a lot of that has happened because of the U.S. government and because of its soldiers. It's a very real situation, and it's happened too many times. Sorry, I just wanted to take that part seriously. You get it. Rachel wakes up in the pit and finds herself isolated from everyone else, except for a vampire, as well as Clarice. Oh, also, Clarice is alive, somehow? I don't know. Clarice and Rachel escape the vampire as we cut back to Salim and Eric, who have one of my favorite conversations in the game.
Can I ask what her name was?
Whose name?
Your wife. What was her name?
You don't get to talk about her.
Please, I don't mean anything by it. It's just... we're stuck here together.
You want to talk? All right. Why are you still fighting a war that you've already lost?
You think I do this out of choice? That I want to be here. I fight so my son can go to university, so that he can have a better future.
Could all use some of that.
My son, his name is Zane.
Her name was Rachel.
That aside, Nick and Jason make it outside of the temple to find some cables leading up to the surface. They conversate about how they can use them to send a signal out and to call in the cavalry. That conversation is then cut short when Vampire Joey tackles Jason and almost kills him. But with the help of Nick's rifle and Eric's UV wand, Vampire Joey's killed. For good this time. Clarice shows Rachel her special little hiding place and helps patch up her arm before they start climbing, hoping to meet back up with the others. On the way there, Clarice spouts the most topical line of any of these playthroughs yet.
Give me the silent treatment, huh?
Unfortunately, Clarice also doubles over in pain. She's clearly infected or harmed in some way by the vampires or a previous meal. Clarice asks for Rachel to not leave her, and Rachel comforts her, saying that there's medicine up top, but if they want to get it, they'll have to move fast. Rachel and Clarice make it to a gap, just across from the temple the others are at. We prepare a grappling hook, but Clarice stops Rachel, asking her if she really thinks that the medicine will help her. Rachel's silence speaks louder than words could. Rachel swings across the gap and makes it to the other side safely. She holds the rope in hand and has a decision. Does she throw the rope and hump Clarice? Or, she leaves her. Yeah, you guessed it. Doing nothing basically defaults to that. They both leave without another word, in a scene that I actually find pretty sad, in my opinion. You know, I like Clarice. She was cool. Nick, Jason, and Eric inspect a radio they find and attempt to repair it. The Americans are afforded a break, finally, and while doing so, Nick whips out the old ciggy, but seems to have misplaced his lighter. Eric has found his competition. But before a proper dick measuring contest can begin, the radio blares out and vampires screech. Nick fixes it while Jason covers him, and Eric goes to watch the cameras. Eric makes it about 5 feet before getting knocked out. Dar fires at the radio, stopping the sound, which is good. But then he fires at Nick and Jason, which isn't as good. After Nick and Dar exchange bullets, and Salim spares Eric, everyone retreats into the temple. Nick and Jason shut the doors as Eric covers them, but they hear a familiar voice from across. Rachel runs inside and is officially joined back with both her boy toys. and Jason. Rachel hugs Nick, happy to see her subordinate again. Eric is then given a chance to hug Rachel or punch Nick, but instead, he does neither, and he tells Rachel that he didn't cut the rope, saying he wouldn't do such a thing. Rachel knows and hugs him tightly. The happy reunions are unfortunately cut short by spooky vampires as the Americans move back out to the throne room. From the throne room, they all fight back as Rachel finds the next best place to go, the catacombs. Rachel and Eric lead the charge right into the hallway that was mined beforehand. But because we went with Nick's suggestion to plant them on the side by doing nothing, Rachel and Eric survive as they push forward to just outside the sacrificial chamber, where they find Dar and Salim ready to ambush them. The tables quickly turn in the Americans' favor as they have the numbers, but Eric makes an executive decision. They need to work together. They're gonna need their help. With an uneasy alliance settled and vampires closing in, the Americans and the Iraqis move into the sacrificial chamber with one single objective: survive the assault. First, Jason is tackled and taken away by a vampire. Nick follows close, hoping to help his brother, but is blocked by a mysterious figure. Salim and Dar fight back to back, but Salim is thrown to the ground, and Dar fails to see a vampire creeping up behind him, and is impaled by the demons. Salim saves him, but gets right back into the fight using his captain's rifle. We transition back to Nick as the mysterious figure steps forward. The Ancient One stands before our hero. Kirim from the prologue has risen from the dead. The Ancient One slams Nick into the wall and chokes him as we go back to Salim, who fends off two vampires before one tackles Rachel and another lunges for him. Salim has a choice, but this time it is the QTE, so he's allowed to act. Eric finds Nick being choked out by the Ancient One, and without a single bit of input from the player, Eric actually saves Nick using his UV wand, causing Eric to be the one targeted by the Ancient One, his head between his hands. Both run to escape, but Rachel pauses, seeing her old love in trouble. But of course, Rachel cannot make a choice, and leaves Eric to die. Nick is thrown into skeletal remains, knocked out. Rachel and Salim run away before being separated from one another. All that's left is Eric, in the hands of the Ancient One. But thanks to my expert gamer abilities, he is just barely able to escape the monster's grasp. He does a fucking sick-ass roll for the UV wand, and is able to fend off the Ancient One with it. I gotta give Eric a little more credit, dude's a badass. But not everyone made it out. We see Dar crawl away, but his efforts are futile, and is eaten alive by 3 vampires as the chaos comes to a close. We then see what became of Jason and that vampire, and as you guessed, Jason's plot armor saved him once again. Jason, now separated from his allies, finds himself at a standoff with Salim, who grabs his rifle and forces them to work together. It's the only way they'll survive. Jason begrudgingly agrees, and they make their way down to a medical center the archaeologist had set up, where Jason also finds some dynamite, a surprise tool that will help them later. Another surprise tool they find is an elevator, one that goes deeper into the cave system than they've gone thus far. Green smoke emanates from the abyss, but they have no other option. Jason and Salim venture into the unknown. Nick wakes up in the sacrificial chamber, meeting back up with Rachel, as well as Eric. Before tension can rise any further, the Ancient One comes barreling in and chases them all down the same path Jason and Salim took. They try to run, but the Ancient One catches up to them and has Nick at its mercy. And surprisingly, once again, Eric saves Nick, even at the potential expense of his own life. He tackles the Ancient One, throwing it down a hole, and Eric almost falls in as well, but Nick and Rachel are able to pull him back up, thankfully. They move on, and Nick actually thanks Eric for helping him out. Nick's my goat. I love that man. Eric and Rachel want to go find Kolchak, but Nick stops them. He thinks it's time. After all they have survived, these 3 are owed a moment of honesty and clarity. Bare minimum. Rachel tells Eric that what they had was special, but it's over. She says the same to Nick, and Rachel moves on. Eric is unhappy, to say the least, but Nick doesn't engage with his abrasiveness. Everyone has lost too much today. Jason and Salim make it into some unknown structure 3,341 feet below the surface. They explore it further and find it's huge, expansive. This is what Kalis detected. Jason and Salim make a plan to venture deeper into the unknown, to find a way to hurt the vampires. But one thing is made clear. It is every man for himself. They walk through for a considerably boring amount of time before eventually stumbling across Balathu. You remember Balathu, right? The guy from the prologue? Hundreds of years ago? Yeah, well, he's here. Half alive. Been alive since before the prologue. Just sitting there. Motionless for hundreds of years. Yeah, that's real nightmare shit. That's the shit Scarecrow would use on me, so let's just kill him and move on. Jason and Salim stealthily move through some cocoons, but soon enough they awaken a vampire from its slumber and are cornered yet again, but are luckily saved by our resident superhero, Nick K. While the vampire is distracted, everyone makes it under a tunnel to the Star Chamber, the survivors' former plan. With the explosives the Americans bought and the dynamite from the archaeologists, they can blow up some of the cocoons, causing enough distraction and chaos to where they can all slip away, or at the very least, take some monsters down with them. Returning to a vantage point, they all have to make a tough call. Who is going to be the one to plant the explosives? And of course, Nick volunteers. Less surprisingly though, Eric actually offers Nick the UV wand, a super rare scene I've only gotten once before in like my 100 hours in this game, so that's really cool. Nick goes down to plant the explosives slung on his back. He sets one charge, then a second charge, and spies the mother lode. Nick then has a huge choice that will give us one of the coolest scenes ever if he advances. But he doesn't, because, I mean, you get it, you understand why. They set off the charges and all make for the exit, but while escaping, Salim is separated from the Americans and is forced to hide while vampires surround him. Jason radios Salim asking him to come in, but all Salim can say is that he's surrounded, and that if he dies, to tell his son that he did everything he could. And all Jason does is wish him Godspeed. In most playthroughs, Jason would actually go back to save Salim, but not this time. Salim is on his own. Salim fights one vampire, and then another, and then that's it. Yeah, not too terrible, but he for sure could have died there, I'm pretty sure. With the aftershocks from the explosions forcing the cave to crumble around them, the survivors have to move quickly. They rappel up the ropes, only for Rachel and Eric to be left to fight a vampire Clarice. A sad scene, because I honestly really liked her character. But Eric and Rachel survive nonetheless. They make it out to the throne room and even to just outside the temple where, lo and behold, a hole in the ground has finally opened up, providing them with an exit. They scale the statue and climb one last time to make it above ground. The five of them relax, resting, sun beaming, smiles gleaming. All is good, or at least, that's how it's appearing. But little did they know, the gods were scheming. The moon flies over the sun, preventing celebrating. The vampires rise again. The survivors make it to the huts and prepare themselves. They only have to hold out for 6 more minutes. 6 minutes, and it'll all be over. Nick is grabbed to the roof by a vampire, but before he can be claimed by death, Eric and Rachel are able to pull him back down to safety. Then, a vampire nearly bursts through the door, but Salim is able to push it back while the others fire off everything they got. Soon enough, ammo runs out, and all they have left are flares. They light them up and hold their position as the Ancient One bursts through the door. It takes out Nick and Jason. Salim stabs it before being thrown to the ground. Rachel and Eric engage. Eric is punched down, and Rachel attempts to push the knife deeper into the monster but fails, and is flipped over the Ancient One's shoulder. Eric is then kicked, punched, and grappled by the monster. He's barely able to hold on long enough to get the upper hand. He stabs it in the neck and pushes the flare into the wound, stunning the monster just in time for Rachel to swoop in and impale the beast with its own spear. But the battle isn't done yet. The five of them huddle up in a circle, Avenger style, and ready themselves. First, Rachel dodges the claws of a vampire before throwing a fucking knife at it, sticking its hand to the ground. She recovers the knife and quickly stakes the monster in the heart. Next, Eric burns the chest of a monster before it slams him to the ground. He dodges its claws as we switch to Nick. He holds off another vampire, using the same strategy of burning and stabbing, and it works long enough for the monster to run away. Salim and Jason fight their own monsters, as Rachel deals with another vampire, but she fails, and inches towards the corner of the room, at the mercy of the monster, until the sun beams through. The monsters run back into their holes, but the ones that don't burn and crumble to ash. Our 5 survivors can rest easy. Salim goes home to his son, and the 4 Americans are picked up by their fellow soldiers. Not only did we beat House of Ashes without making any decisions, we beat it with every character surviving. Well, every main character. Sorry, Clarice. Thank you everybody so much for watching. This video took me a very long time to make, and I'd appreciate it if you let me know your thoughts, good or bad. The challenge was a lot of fun. I'm not sure what I'll do for my next video. I'll see you later, and remember, make good choices.